Fans, it's Aztec 101 in the ring, and I saw a boxing librarian put up a video talking about Terrence Crawford trying to become undisputed and the whole challenges that are coming in from the IBF enforcing a mandatory on Ndongo, and then the way the fans are reacting. I think that was the main point of his video, was talking about how the fans are reacting, very impatient, forcing, wanting the fight to happen tomorrow, right away, next fight. Not giving any wiggle room for Dongo to take on his mandatory if there is one. And I saw the response video from Dstylesboxing, and I really want to focus on some of the things that Dstylesboxing brought up. And I agree with the whole situation when he's talking about he's okay with boxing fans and boxers in general saying, fuck a certain belt. Fuck the IBF, fuck the WBC, fuck the WBA. He says he agrees with that, and doesn't have a problem with it, which I think it's something that we need to be doing more often. But anyways, the one thing that I've heard before, not just from D-Style, but it came out in his response video, was talking about back in the day. Back in the day when champions were champions, there was no disputing who that champion was. Back in the day when everyone fought their mandatory, where there were less divisions, back in the day when fighters would weigh in the day of the fight at a particular weight instead of the day before. Talking about these days as if this was a time in boxing when there wasn't corruption, when there wasn't terrible media, just media taking advantage of the people, promoters taking advantage of the people, as if there weren't fights that people didn't get, or fights that they had to wait years for, as if there wasn't A side, B side politics. Talking about the past as if back in the day, to me it's complete bullshit if you're realistic with the way boxing used to be. Boxing was one of the most popular sports, during the Great Depression. Top three sports was, baseball, horse racing, and boxing. Right? When? 1930s? The concept of what boxing used to be needs to be laid out when looking at history correctly as a whole. You can't tell me that the reason why the popularity has dropped for boxing is solely because there's more divisions, more belts, and people are weighing in the night before. That's bullshit. That's not the reason why boxing fell off. Obviously, it's the whole way sports is viewed. It's a way out of a certain situation, and it could become someone's full career path. And you have a better chance of putting your kid into a good college through baseball, football, basketball, but not through boxing. You're not going to get a school scholarship because you're a great boxer. Can you swim? Can you defend a tackle? What's your free point? Your free throw average. That's what colleges want to know, not how many knockouts you have. So this whole concept of boxing was hurt because of pay-per-views and all that shit. No. Boxing has just not been able to compete with other sports because it's not necessarily a sport. It's more of a martial art. And once people start getting into that concept and knowing that it's a martial art, not a sport, you're not going to get... The way people view a champion is the way they view the winner of the World Cup or the Super Bowl. But there's seasons to these sports. These sports, they begin with a blank slate. and then they play down their bracket until the end. And we're not going to get that kind of concept with boxing because there is no bracket, there's no season, it's continuous, it's never ending, and it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop. The same competition, the same bracket system that Robinson was in, Gervonta Davis is in now. And the season never ended. Fighters just retired or died. That's it. But the season's still going. It's never ending. It's infinite. And so boxing fans, if you're a sport fan, you just need to separate this from other sports. Other sports, they can crown a world champion or whatever the fuck you want to have it. Because in their sport, you'll never hear of the New England Patriots say, well, you know what? I know my next opponent is supposed to be the New York Jets, but New Orleans, the Saints, they're having a great season. They have a better record. And I think it's better for my career to play them instead of the New York Jets. That never happens. Why? Because there's already the season ends. Then they'll do it again next year. Boxing does not do that. You are not going to have ever a clear champion. There will always be someone coming up the ranks that will oppose a threat. And, that's normally when boxing is doing well. And boxing can only do well if there's young athletes looking at boxing as a career path. You know what I mean? And, it's just a lot easier for a lot of these younger athletes to go into football, baseball, basketball, because they can get college degrees at the same time while pursuing a career. And they can have a plan B. You just can't do that with boxing. The whole concept of this being the same type of sport, it is a niche sport. It is, because it's not a sport. It's fucking fighting. It's a martial art. It's the art of using your hands to box. That's why to me the belts mean nothing. What matters is the names. The martial artist, the boxer, should prove himself against as many names, notable names, guys that we know we've seen, as possible. Because there's motherfuckers out there with titles that shouldn't have titles. And this has always happened. To look back into history, when it was this great time in history. Please, someone explain it. That's what I want to know in this video. Because are we going to go back to when African Americans weren't allowed to compete for a championship heavyweight title or any title whatsoever? Are we going to talk about the 20s, the 40s? These were the golden ages in boxing. But that was fucking 20, 40 years before the civil rights movement. What kind of rights do you really think people were giving to African American fighters, which make up now most athletes in America? It was never a level playing field. And then even when the mafia was in it, you really going to tell me that everything was leveled, everything was clear, there was a clear path to a championship? Fuck that. Fighters were taking dives because they were getting paid. You're telling me that there wasn't a point where referees were bought, judges were bought, reporters were bought? Get the fuck out of here. Explain to me, when was there an era where any of that just didn't exist? It doesn't, that era doesn't exist. So to go back in the day, what days? What perfect era did we have in boxing where shit wasn't going down? Where shit wasn't complicated and it didn't make sense who was holding certain belts. You can pick a division, you can pick the heavyweight division, that's fine, but there's other divisions that had bullshit going on around that same time that Muhammad Ali was doing what he was supposed to be doing. But you know what, I'll go into this later a little bit more in detail. This is Aztec 101 in the ring. Just getting, I guess I'm just ranting here, but what do you guys think? It's Aztec 101 in the ring. I'm out.